At long last, the Creation Club is live. Now, emotions run high when talking about the Creation Club. Based on my YouTube comments, there are many people who feel like the Creation Club is a big cash grab on Bethesda's part. It's horrible for the modding community and Bethesda games in general. It should just go away. But there are many others who don't really see the big deal. Microtransactions are common in games these days, so what if Bethesda comes up with their own shop no one is forced to buy? Well, I want to cover this topic without denigrating anyone's opinions or strong emotions on the topic, is to go over each of the new creations available on the Creation Club before making any conclusions about the entire program as a whole. Viewers will remember in my last video on the topic that my primary concerns about the Creation Club were on whether or not the content available was going to be canonical. That is, whether or not it was going to be considered part of the Fallout canon lore. At the time I said, hey, the Creation Club isn't here yet, let's just wait and see. Well, the wait is over. Let's see what we've got. This is Oxhorn's Mod Muster. Yes, I probably shouldn't be calling these mods. It is the Creation Club, I know, but I didn't want to make a new intro slide, so. Before we go further, we gotta talk a little bit about the money. So to buy stuff with the Creation Club, we gotta spend credits. If you add up the price of every single item in the Creation Club available right now, to buy everything, you need exactly 3,000 credits. Now, I'm sure the price of these credits varies from region to region, but in the US, on the West Coast, as of September 2nd, using US dollars, the price of 750 Creation Club credits is $7.99, but you get a discount the more you buy. Now, the offerings they give us are $750, $1,500, $3,000, or $550. Since if we want to get everything, we need to have 3,000 credits, the total cost for 3,000 credits after the discount is $24.99. So to buy everything, we're going to be spending $25. If we do the math, that comes out to about 0.008 cents per credit. Now, let's start with the Hellfire Power Armor. The Hellfire Power Armor is 500 credits, which is about $4.16. We all remember the Hellfire Power Armor when it was introduced to us in the Broken Steel add-on for Fallout 3 way back in 2009. The Hellfire Power Armor was developed by the Enclave after the war, being one of the few pieces of power armor developed post-war. It was developed at the Adams Air Force Base. The stats of the Hellfire suit of armor was equal to the stats of the T-51B suit of power armor. The Hellfire Power Armor comes back to us in Fallout 4 with the Creation Club. After purchasing and installing the Hellfire Power Armor, the next time we log into the game, we get a new quest called Pyromaniac. With the quest objective, find and kill Pyro. This sends us to a small raider encampment just south of the Saugus Ironworks. Here we find a couple of forged raiders led by the raider named Pyro. Yeah, that's right. His name is Pyro, a member of the Forged. You know, because Hellfire Power Armor, right? Get it? Anyway, after we kill Pyro and his Forged guys, we loot the Hellfire Power Armor off of his body. And yeah, that's it. That's the quest. We now have the full suit of power armor. So right off the bat, what bothers me about this encounter is that it feels like it was put together really quickly. I don't feel like a lot of thought went into the encounter. It had a lot of great potential. I mean, the Hellfire Power Armor was one of the best suits of power armor developed by the Enclave after the Great War, rivaling the T-51 suit. I would expect a suit of power armor like this to be in the hands of maybe a small band of remnants that we find here in the Commonwealth, or at least some enterprising scavenger who might have found this in the Capital Wastelands, moved it to Boston where he set up some sort of underground tinker lab. I don't know, I mean, the last people I thought would be wearing a suit of Enclave Hellfire Power Armor would be raiders. The only thing that fits the Hellfire suit of power armor with the Forged is the word fire in its name, Hellfire. Sure, it's cute giving it to the Forged and making a raider named Pyro wear it, but from a lore perspective, it doesn't make any sense at all. I feel like Bethesda could have given us a much more interesting and lore-friendly encounter, with terminals and messages and recorded dialogue. I get it, these things take time, maybe they were strapped for time, sure, but this entire thing still feels like it was put together in one workday, if that. But let's focus on the armor itself. Here I am at my armor workbench, and you see that each piece of armor says lookup failed. That's not a problem with the Creation Club, that's a problem with my own installation of Fallout 4. I have some sort of mod that's conflicting with the names of these new items. In fact, I had to turn off all of my interface mods just to use the Creation Club store. I wasn't able to purchase anything until I disabled those mods. So this is my issue, not Bethesda's. Normally, each of these pieces of armor would say Hellfire Power Armor. When we get it, each piece is already upgraded to Mark 6. When fully upgraded, the Hellfire Power Armor becomes the best piece of power armor in the game, clocking in with 1820 damage resistance and 1450 energy resistance. This matches the damage resistance of a fully upgraded full suit of XO1 power armor and exceeds the energy resistance of an XO1 suit of power armor by 60 points. Thus, the Hellfire Power Armor is the best suit of power armor in the game, but not by much. And I'm really glad about that. I'd be disappointed if the Hellfire suit of power armor was way better than all of the other power armors in the game. If it was, then I think that would wreck the balance of the game for me. The thing I like best about this suit of power armor is Bethesda included many different faction paint jobs. We find a Brotherhood of Steel Knight, Paladin, and Sentinel paint job, a Minuteman, Railroad, and Institute paint job. What frustrated me about power armor in vanilla Fallout 4 is that all of these faction paint jobs were restricted to certain suits of power armor. And since some suits of power armor, like the XO1, are far and away greater than, say, the T-45, it bummed me out that I couldn't sport my Minuteman pride with the best suit of power armor in the game. Instead, I had to resort to mods to do that. But with the Hellfire suit of power armor, no matter what faction you side with, you can paint it up in your faction colors. And I love it. However, what bums me out is that if you look at the right leg, the power armor frame clips through the metal. Look at this. I don't have any mods installed that alter the power armor frame in any way, and I certainly don't have any mods installed that alter the Hellfire suit of power armor. I just bought it and just installed it. So this is the Creation Club Hellfire power armor on top of the vanilla Fallout 4 power armor frame. And there's clipping. I can remove the leg and you can clearly see that this is the power armor frame just clipping right through the mesh of the leg. There's also clipping by the knee. The frame just pokes right through the knee. I realize that this is a very small thing. It doesn't impact gameplay, it's completely cosmetic, it's not going to bother most people. But it bothers me. It bothers me because one of the biggest selling points of the Creation Club is that mods published by the Creation Club are done by professionals, and they're thoroughly reviewed by the Bethesda team to ensure full compatibility with Fallout 4. That's a promise that we don't get from user-made mods. So naturally, we should have higher expectations of the stuff that we're paying money to purchase from the Creation Club, right? And yet we see something like this. Again, yes, it's a small thing, not that big of a deal. But I'm disappointed to see this in something that I bought from the Creation Club. Now, I can't talk about the Creation Club version of the Hellfire Power Armor without talking about the XO3 Hellfire Power Armor mod published by the Road to Liberty crew led by Unoctium. Back on August 19th, Unoctium and the Road to Liberty published their own version of the Hellfire Power Armor. This was just a week or so before the Creation Club launched. Now, clearly the Hellfire Power Armor was a Bethesda concept. It originated from Bethesda, published in the Broken Steel add-on back in 2009. So Bethesda did not take this idea from the Road to Liberty crew. And I think it's unlikely that they decided to make the Hellfire Power Armor in response to the success of the mod. Even though I said it felt like the quote-unquote quest to get this armor was made in a day, things like this take longer than a week to put together in large companies like Bethesda, especially when you have to consider all of the different layers of managerial approval that things like this have to get passed through before it's made public. So clearly it's a coincidence that Bethesda decided to come out with their own Hellfire Power Armor for the Creation Club in around the same time that Unoctium and his team decided to come out with their own mod. Neither team copied each other, it's just a coincidence. That said, the XO3 Hellfire Power Armor mod by Road to Liberty is a masterpiece. And it's free. Here it is in my Power Armor workbench. It does not have any of the faction paint jobs. However, it does have 2 different skins, the traditional Hellfire skin and then a Brimstone skin that sadly I couldn't use because it requires commando, and it accepts many of the same paint jobs for other power armors like the Shark paint job, the Flames paint job, and the Hot Rod Pink paint job. But more importantly, take a look at this thing. It is beautiful. And no clipping on the right leg. It's the same power armor frame, just a different version of the Hellfire power armor. Look at the detail on this thing. I particularly like the pipes. The texture on these pipes is great. It looks like some sort of corded fabric. And look at the screws on the faceplate. You can even see the slots in the screws. What wonderful attention to detail. Here they are side by side, and you can tell that they are very similar, but they have distinct differences. Now, everyone has their own personal preference, and as much as I like the Creation Club version of the Hellfire power armor, if I'm being honest, I prefer the modded version better. I wish it had faction paint jobs, but if we're just talking about its implementation in the game, I think this is a much more polished product. They even took the time to create a little bit of a backstory on the mod download page and a loading slide dedicated to this new suit of power armor. So let's talk about Canon. Is the Hellfire power armor we can get from the Creation Club Canon? Well, yes and no. The power armor itself is canon, stretching all the way back to Broken Steel. But the way Bethesda implemented it into the game seems so far-fetched that I just can't consider it to be canon. A random forged raider named Pyro is wearing a full suit of Enclave Hellfire power armor in the Capital Wastelands, just standing around in some random field waiting to be killed. It just doesn't work for me. It's canon that the suit of armor exists, but in my opinion, it's not canon that we find it on Pyro. One final thing that bothers me about the Hellfire power armor is we spent $4.16 for this thing. To buy the entire DLC of Nuka World, we spent around $20, unless we were season pass owners. So if we were to convert dollars to effort, we're supposed to believe that to create this Hellfire suit of power armor took 20% of the effort used to create the entire Nuka World DLC. Now, obviously, the economics don't always break down like that. Perhaps Bethesda was able to charge less for Nuka World simply because far more people would have bought it compared to the Hellfire power armor, which probably is going to be purchased by fewer people, in which case maybe charging $4.16 for it is the only way to make it profitable. But in terms of pure dollar-to-dollar value, we're paying 20% of what we paid for Nuka World just to install this suit of power armor. Next up is the Chinese stealth armor. This costs 400 credits, and like the Hellfire power armor, this comes straight from Fallout 3. We find the Chinese stealth armor during the Operation Anchorage DLC, and coincidentally enough, the Road to Liberty crew had made their own modded version of this long ago, way back on January 1st. After installing it, we get a quest called Can You See Me Now? This sends us to the South Boston military checkpoint. And like with the Hellfire power armor, this quest is underwhelming. We find a few gunners guarding the South Boston military checkpoint, and when dead, we just walk in and loot the Chinese stealth armor from the big end of dungeon steamer trunk. And that's it. Again, I just can't help but feel like this was a huge missed opportunity. What if instead of finding it in some trunk somewhere, maybe we found a small underground hideout with a bunch of Chinese ghouls who have been living there spying on radio transmissions for the past 200 years without realizing that the war had ended. You know, like the guys we find in Fallout 3. Or maybe we find an old abandoned building in downtown Boston, we climb into the attic where we find an aged Chinese ghoul with whom we can have a conversation, and he tells us his story about serving in the Chinese military, and then we get these conflicting feelings about who was really the bad guy or the good guy, and then after listening to the old man's story, he gifts us his Chinese stealth armor. There were so many different ways we could have done this rather than just finding it in a chest. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Bethesda didn't think out the lore ramifications of this. After all, if you watched my video on military checkpoints, when we explored the South Boston military checkpoint, we found on a terminal that the Wu family had been detained here for some time. It's possible that the military stole this suit off of the Wu family before sending them on their way, which is why we find it here 200 years later. At any rate, the Chinese stealth armor looks great. You know, it looks exactly as we would expect it to look. And one of the major new things with this suit of armor is they changed the sound effect when you go into stealth mode. Now when you crouch down into stealth, we hear this. This new sound effect works with anything that puts us into stealth. Now, some drawbacks to this suit of armor is it's not compatible with ballistic weave. So frustrating. That would have made this suit of armor amazing. I could have then used it as the primary suit for my railroad character, but no, it's not compatible with ballistic weave. And you can't wear any armor over it. It doesn't count as a piece of underwear. This is a bit frustrating because at least in Fallout 3 we could wear the shady hat on top of our Chinese stealth armor, but no, with this, we can only wear the stealth armor. It doesn't even show up in an armor bench. We can't add ballistic weave. We can't add any material or miscellaneous mods. We can't upgrade it. It's just what it is. Now, in terms of function, it differs from the Chameleon legendary effect in that you maintain your stealth field while moving. So here I set up a small experiment to show you how these things work. Here we are in the middle of day, right outside an Irish pub, and we're gonna sneak up on these guys. On one screen, I'm using the stealth armor, and on the other screen, I'm using a piece of legendary chameleon armor. As you can see, once we start moving, we lose the stealth field with the piece of legendary chameleon armor, but we maintain it with the Chinese stealth armor. Even with the Chinese stealth armor, we still get detected because it is in the middle of the day, but we get a lot closer to our enemy before we get detected compared to the chameleon armor. So, is this canon? Yeah, I'd say it's canon. It makes a lot of sense. I presented a story that is certainly plausible. They may have found this when they searched the Wu family car and then placed it in a trunk. Next up is the Morgan's spacesuit. This costs 300 credits, and basically it's a really great radiation suit. It gives us 1,000 radiation resistance, 50 energy resistance, and 5 damage resistance. But, I mean, it doesn't look like it belongs in a Fallout world. Look at this. I mean, it looks fine. It looks great and all, but it looks like it was made for a different game, which it was. This suit was worn by Morgan, the main character of the video game Prey, published by Bethesda. Why Bethesda thought Fallout 4 players would want this in Fallout 4 is honestly beyond me. You know, maybe this is a way for them to promote their other games, to expose games like Prey to a bigger audience. I understand that from a business perspective, but it has some troubling implications. Maybe I'm weird about this, but I really don't want to see the Creation Club store filled with a bunch of armor, toys, gadgets, models, weapons from other games. Do we now believe that the Prey universe takes place within the Fallout universe? Is that what we're supposed to walk away with? Did Morgan enter some sort of time warp and get sent to this year in the Fallout universe, and then he got killed, and then what are the lore implications of this? I know I'm overthinking this. There are no lore implications of this. It's a cool little outfit, and Bethesda thought it might sell well. That's why it's on the Creation Club. I get it, but it bothers me because I'm more interested in things being lore-friendly. I'm more interested in things being canon. And to find something like this, which is clearly not canon, is just a little bit disappointing. But you know what? I don't have to buy it. And just like installing mods, it's my responsibility to make sure that I install the Creation Club items that I think best suit the kind of gameplay that I'm trying to achieve. Next up is the Horse Power Armor. We buy this for 250 credits, half the price of the Hellfire Power Armor. This horse armor is an inside joke. Back in 2006, Bethesda released a DLC for the game Oblivion where they introduced horse armor. You could put some armor on your horse. The first set of armor was free, but if you wanted to put armor on any horses after that, it cost $250. A similar price to the 250 credits we have to spend for the horse armor in Fallout 4. They got a lot of backlash for this because it seemed like such a simple thing, and yet it's going to cost $2.50 to put horse armor on every horse they want after the first one. It appeared to be a cash grab. Bethesda apparently learned their lesson from this experience. When Pete Hines was interviewed about it, he says, "The reaction we got to horse armor just wasn't about the price, it was more of a lesson. When you're gonna ask somebody to pay X, do they feel like they're getting Y in exchange? If they don't feel like they're getting their money's worth, they're going to complain." And yes, I agree, that is an important lesson to learn. So when Bethesda started developing ideas for the Creation Club, of course, they thought it would be hilarious to put in some horse armor for Fallout 4. You can see the wheels spinning in their heads. Oh, this is going to be such a great joke. Everyone's going to get a kick out of it. We're going to show that we can laugh at ourselves. They're going to love it. And so after purchasing and installing the horse armor, we get a quest in our Pitboy called Giddy Up. This, of course, sends us to the Wilson Automatoys toy factory. After clearing the super mutants, we go on inside, and on the ground floor of the main atrium, we find something new. We find a big power armor repair station, and inside, a full suit of Giddy Up Buttercup power armor. We also find the body of a raider lying on the ground. On his corpse, we find 2 unique items: Scabby's journal, Keep Out, and Betty Buttercup. Scabby's journal is a holotape that tells Scabby's story over a series of terminal entries. The first was on October 11th. Man, oh man, me and the boys hit the jackpot with this place. So much pricey junk here. I can hack it up and fix up the boys' power armors, or use it to lure traders here and whack 'em. Jet first, plan later. The next entry comes a day later. We've been having a blast ripping this place up and trashing everything, but you know, I'll be damned if these Giddy Up Buttercup heads ain't actually kinda cute. Maybe it's the Jet talking, but I think I'm gonna keep one. I think I'll call her Betty. Betty Buttercup. Wait, no, what am I saying? 2 days later on the 14th, when are you gonna fix our armor, huh? Why you spending all that time with those little ponies, huh, Scabby? That's all they say. These guys don't get me, but I swear Betty does. I can tell her anything. She understands me. It's like those little button eyes can read my soul. She told me to protect her friends, so I've been keeping the boys away from the Giddy Up stash, telling them I need them to fix up their gear. They won't understand. They never understand. These Giddy Ups are my real friends. A day later, those jerks. Last night they shook out my coat while I was sleeping and they found Betty in there. They started laughing and calling me Pony Boy and taking turns kicking her head back and forth. Then they smashed her to bits. Oh God, they smashed Betty. They have no idea what's coming to them now. And the final entry on the 18th. These guys think I've been working on their armor the past few days, but they've got another thing coming. Betty told me in my dreams how to get revenge. I've used the bits and pieces of my Betty and her friends to make the fastest power armor anyone's ever seen. They think it's for them, but when I fire it up tonight, I'll show them how it works. I'm gonna make them beg for forgiveness and take them all out one by one. You don't mess with Scabby. For now, I gotta play along like everything's just fine. We got some traders coming by we're gonna knock over. Sounds like they're here now. But of course we know that it wasn't traders who arrived, but rather super mutants. The super mutants arrived, killed all the raiders, and Scabby here, leaving poor Betty without an owner. We find Betty's head on his body. It's a little dismembered Giddy Up Buttercup head that's been painted blue with some text scrawled on it. I think I'll be adding this to Sean's room. Bethesda is multitasking here. Not only are they making an inside joke about horse armor, but I think they're also taking a dig at bronies here. That's just the impression I'm getting. Now, the horse power armor itself is pretty doggone cool. The Giddy Up Buttercup pieces are pretty much just attached to a suit of Raider power armor. He's got 3 Buttercup pieces on top of the helmet, and then he's strapped a bunch of other Buttercup pieces to work like armor. The knee guards are the entire front ends of Giddy Up Buttercups, and when we enter it...
Treat for you.
Oh, that's right. It neighs. It neighs when you climb on in. That's just amazing. Well, taking this back home, we can prop it up in our workstation to check out the details. Now, like the Hellfire suit, when we find this thing, it's fully upgraded. And you'd think, well, this is a hacked-together suit of power armor made by a Raider. It's not going to be very good, right? Surely it's around the Raider power armor level. But no. It's over 3 times better than a full suit of Raider power armor. It's twice as good as a full suit of Raider 2 power armor. It's 500 points better than the Overboss power armor from Nuka World. It's 200 points better than a fully upgraded suit of T60 power armor. If you count the Hellfire suit of power armor, the Horse power armor is the 3rd best suit of power armor in the game when fully upgraded, clocking in at 1740 damage resistance and 1300 energy resistance, making it only 80 points of damage resistance and 90 points of energy resistance worse than a fully upgraded suit of X01 power armor. This piece of Raider-built horse armor is better than anything worn by the Brotherhood of Steel. I don't know if I like that or not. On one hand, yeah, from a Brotherhood perspective, that's kind of a bummer. Here you've got an entire military faction force whose sole mission is to find technology and use it for their own means and salvage it and improve upon it. And then you've got this raider at the Wilson Automatoys factory who's able to scratch build a piece of power armor together, not even using any pre-war technology. He built this on top of raider power armor. A bunch of horses plus raider power armor equals the third best suit of power armor in the entire game. One other cool thing about this is they use the automatron robot painting mechanic for each of these pieces of power armor. So instead of using any of the magazine paint schemes or faction paint schemes, you can paint each piece a different color: pink, red, green, yellow, gray, blue, which I think adds a great little Raider vibe to this suit of power armor. And unlike the other Raider power armors, you can add a jetpack to the back. So for anyone doing a Raider playthrough, there's no question this suit of armor is a must-have. Now, is it canon? Look, I just want to say, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I wanted to see with the other encounters. Bethesda put more time, energy, and thought into putting together this silly little horse adventure than they did with the Hellfire, than they did with the Chinese stealth armor. I love the fact that we found a little holotape on Scabby's body. I love the fact that we got Betsy, his little horse friend. I wish they had done what they did with this horse armor with the more serious pieces of armor and weapons that they've added with the Creation Club. That they only did this with their little horse joke is a bit frustrating to me. That said, I don't see any reason why this can't be canon. Yeah, I think that the suit of power armor is a little bit too powerful. I think it's unrealistic that a Raider could have produced something this powerful, but everything else about it I think is perfectly logical within this world and think it fits. So I'm happy to say that this is canon. Next up is the prototype Gauss Rifle. We buy this for 400 credits, and it looks a whole lot like the Gauss Rifle that we get with Operation Anchorage for Fallout 3. After installing it, we get a new quest in our quest log called The Prototype. This sends us to Gunner's Plaza. The quest marker points to one enemy in particular standing on the roof of Gunner's Plaza. We find the tactical Gauss Rifle prototype on a Gunner commander's body. And that's it. That's the quest. Again, really underwhelming. Considering what we had to go through to get the original Gauss Rifle from Operation Anchorage, that is, we had to live through a simulation of the entire battle for Anchorage, Alaska, this is a bummer. All we gotta do is kill one Gunner commander on the rooftop of Gunner's Plaza. Now, the weapon itself is interesting. The magazine holds a total of 3 charges. Each time we wind the crank, we charge up the shot. A 3-crank shot is gonna be a much more powerful shot than a 1-crank shot. But this means that we do have to re-crank the thing for each shot that we take, which is not that big of a deal in VATS, but outside of VATS that may be a little bit cumbersome. Now, taking it to our weapons workbench, we see a lot of wonderful weapon mods. We can choose between a standard or a shielded barrel, a standard stock or a butt stock, a reflex sight or a variety of scopes, including a long night vision scope, and then either no muzzle, a wrapped suppressor, or a full-on suppressor. It's a beautiful little gun. I have to admit that I wasn't terribly thrilled about the idea when I saw it in the Creation Club menu, but now that I have it, I'm glad I do. And the sound it makes is great. I was concerned that it would make the same sound effect that it makes in Fallout 3. I'm not really fond of the way it sounds in Fallout 3, but the sound it makes here in Fallout 4 is satisfying. One thing I dislike about it is that it does use the 2mm EC. That's the same ammunition that the regular Gauss Rifle uses, which makes me wonder exactly why this exists. Since we don't find this weapon elsewhere in the world, we're never going to find it with a legendary effect, which means that this weapon is going to compete with the legendary weapons that we likely already have. For example, I already have a legendary Gauss Rifle. I have a VATS enhanced Gauss Rifle, and it's going to take a lot for me to give up that VATS enhanced legendary effect in favor for this thing. Now, if it used a different kind of ammunition, I might carry both on me. When I get low on the 2mm EC, if this thing used energy cells, then I'd swap it out just to save ammunition. It may do less damage, I may spend more action points, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make to save on ammunition. But since it uses the exact same ammunition, I'm just not going to use it. I'm going to continue to use my VATS enhanced Gauss Rifle. This is still a really cool weapon, and maybe there are going to be some players out there who find a lot of use out of this. But for me, I'm probably not going to use it. Now, is it canon? Well, the tactical hardened Gauss Rifle is certainly canon. We see it in Fallout 3, we find it in Fallout Shelter, although I don't know if Shelter is canon or not, but the way we find it is really disappointing. That said, if there was ever a faction in Fallout 4 to use a Gauss Rifle like this, it would be the Gunners. They use energy weapons, they use plasma weapons, they would probably get their hands on something like this. And if there was ever a location where we would find them using the best weapons that faction has, it would be at Gunners Plaza, the Commonwealth headquarters for the Gunners. However, I'm really disappointed that there wasn't a better quest to get the weapon. Next up are the new Pitboy skins. There are 3 new Pitboy skins: Chrome, Onyx, and Swamp Camo. Each of these skins costs 50 credits, so we're paying about 41 cents per skin. After buying and installing these things, the way it works is you go to any armor bench. There we're going to find a new option called Pitboy. Now again, because I have interface mods installed, we're getting a lot of weird stuff like the text that says lookup failed, but let's just pretend that this says Pitboy or something. Clicking on Pitboy, we go into the menu where we can select from among the different skins that we've installed. Taking a look at the chrome paint, yeah, it looks pretty nice. I like how weathered it is. It doesn't look shiny and glossy and new. It still looks like a used, abused Pitboy, only it's got a bit of a chrome effect to it. I'm not sure who would choose this, because I can't think of any battle scenario where you would want people to see you better. Maybe it would be used by someone who spends all their time in power armor, but it does look pretty handsome. Do note, however, that if you have any Pitboy mods installed, you may see some unintended side effects. For example, I had a really weathered Pitboy mod installed that changed the spectral and normal maps for the Pitboy, and the creation from the Creation Club doesn't overwrite any of those assets, so I got a bit of a mixture going on here. You can see it really messes up the way the Chrome one looks, so if you want to go with the Creation Club offerings, you may need to uninstall any Pitboy mods that you have installed. The next skin they have is the Onyx paint job, and this is just a nice black matte paint job, which is great. I love the rust in the corners of the Pitboy. I'll probably be using this on my Stealthy Railroad Assassin character. And the final one is the Swamp Camouflage paint, and ew, yeah. You know, this camouflage bothers me a little bit. The United States didn't start using a camouflage pattern on uniforms until 1942, but at that time they used something called the frog skin camouflage pattern, which looks way different. The frog skin camouflage pattern just looks like a bunch of splotches on top of a very pale green base, almost a lime green base. Now the pattern we see here is called the ERDL pattern, or also called the leaf pattern. It was developed by the United States in 1948. But it wasn't issued to actual fighting forces until 1967 during the Vietnam War, which means that the United States military didn't start using this pattern until after the Great Divergence, which makes me wonder how the sole survivor got this pattern to be able to paint it on his or her own Pitboy. Now, I'm being granular, I know. Most people aren't gonna care. It's camo, they like this on their Pitboy, and fine. But I have a hard time saying that something like this is going to be canon without an explanation as to how a pattern that wasn't issued to forces until after the Great Divergence somehow got in the hands of the sole survivor in the Fallout universe. Now these 3 skins are fine, but there's no question. Mods do it way better. Mods have been doing skins for the Pitboy for a very long time. There are entire architectures that have been developed that allow you to swap out the colors of your Pitboy, give each character a unique color of Pitboy, and you can find hundreds of colors, shades, glosses, and textures for the Pitboy on free modding communities. So when I have to compare the 3 that we get from Bethesda for 50 cents each to the hundreds that we get online for free, you know, the value just isn't there. I would never sit down and pay 41 cents for a chrome Pitboy skin. That said, you can't use Pitboy skin mods on the PlayStation, so something like this may be really valuable to people who are playing on the PlayStation. So for them, this is probably a great thing, and I hope Bethesda comes out with more skins so that PlayStation players can enjoy them. Next up is the Onyx paint job. The Onyx paint job is just a really nice matte black paint job that works on every vanilla suit of power armor, T45, T51, T60, and X01. Now those of you who sided with the Railroad already have a really nice shadowy dark paint job, but only for the T51 set. The nice thing about this creation is that it works for every suit of power armor, except the Hellfire power armor. For some reason it doesn't work with the new one, even though it does cost 100 credits, so that's about 83 cents. The nice thing about the Onyx paint scheme is that you're harder to detect in dim light with all pieces painted. And I love anything that's going to make power armor a little bit more viable for a stealth character. Next up is the Handmade shotgun. This costs 200 credits. It does significantly more damage than a double barrel shotgun, with 94 damage and a fire rate of 36. Like all other pipe weapons in the game, it's fully moddable. You can mod the receiver, the barrel, the stock, the sights, and the muzzle. Here's what it looks like when I fully upgraded every part. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. I love seeing the springs move when you fire it. It feels good in the hands. It makes a great noise when you fire it. And we definitely lacked a pipe shotgun in the game, so this definitely fleshes out the entire pipe arsenal of weaponry. That said, I wonder how many people are going to buy this thing. Is a pipe shotgun something that people have been clamoring for? It never even occurred to me that the pipe set was missing a shotgun until I saw this for sale. But it makes a great little addition for those of you who love your shotguns. More choices are always a good thing. Next, we have the Modular Military Backpack, which you can buy for 400 credits, which is about $3.32. There's a lot going on with this backpack, and a lot of thoughtful design has gone into it. When we get it in our inventory, it has a standard olive color, but we can take it to any armor station to change the look and to add a bunch of features to it. It comes in a variety of colors: black, blue, brown camo, desert camo, gray, olive, red, sky camo, tan, or urban camo. Of course, there are a lot of lore implications with all of these camos, particularly urban camo, but I'm not going to get into it right now, whatever. But the coolest thing about this backpack is you can sport a bunch of patches on it. Brotherhood of Steel, Gunners, Institute, Medic number 1, Medic number 2, Minuteman Circle, Minuteman Square, NCR 1, NCR 2, Nuka-Cola, Pre-War Police, the Railroad, Riley's Rangers from Fallout 3, the pre-war US flag, and even Vault Tech. That's a wonderful little bit of customization that I think players are going to have a whole lot of fun with. Now there's one big glaring error here. The straps clip with some outfits. Here I am using the Chinese stealth armor. This is a non-modded version of the Chinese stealth armor, not using any body mods. This is exactly as we find it in the Creation Club. But if you try to wear the backpack on top of it, the straps clip with the chest and shoulders. Now it's clear that Bethesda saw this error, but instead of finding a solution to fix it, they went in and gave you the option to turn the straps on or off. So if the straps bother you, your only option is to have this backpack floating on your back. Now that might work if you're wearing a really bulky set of armor. You can just pretend that the straps are underneath your armor. But on a thinner piece of armor like this Chinese stealth suit, where clearly you can't have the straps on underneath the armor, making the straps invisible just makes it look worse. It looks like it's just floating in mid-air. But another cool thing about the backpack is it has a new gear section where you can go through and install a bunch of add-ons. These are not just cosmetic, each of them adds functionality. For example, if you choose the ammo add-on, your action points are fortified, giving you +5 AP, and it increases your carrying capacity. Each time you do one of these gear changes to the backpack, you get to see a new design. Ammo with the sleeping bag. This sleeping bag version comes with each of these, so I'm only going to show it once. And no, sadly, you can't use the sleeping bag. It's just there for decoration. Explosives, which grants +5% explosives damage and adds additional carry weight. Extra bags, which adds even more carry weight than usual. Medic, This increases your health regeneration and adds additional carry weight. Survival, which increases radiation resistance by 5 and damage resistance by 5, and increases carrying capacity. This is a fun modular backpack that I think players are going to have a great time personalizing. Again, my issue is with whether or not this thing can be considered canon. My problem is the design of the actual backpack itself. It's described as a military backpack, but it doesn't look like a military backpack. It looks like a backpack you would give to a college student on his first day of college, like something you would buy off of Amazon. During World War I, the military had the M1910 Field Pack. This evolved to the M1928 Field Pack, which was nearly identical to the 1910 Field Pack with only minor changes, and neither of these looked anything like the backpack we find here. The load-carrying equipment that the military would have used at the time of the Fallout Divergence was the M1956 LCE. It wasn't replaced until 1967, well after the Divergence, with the M1967 modernized load-carrying equipment. These packs didn't look anything like the pack we see here. Instead, the LCE was comprised of a belt, straps, and a bunch of pouches, each with their own design. The earliest backpack that even vaguely resembles what we find here is the 1952 Kelty backpack, which was far more bulkier than what we find in the game. This backpack is really sleek. If this backpack was going to be lore-friendly, it should have the look and feel of a rucksack. It needs to be a little bit more bulky. The Field Scribe's armor is a great example. We find a whole bunch of pouches on the front, and the backpack looks more like a rucksack. The modular backpack just sadly feels out of place and time. Finally, we have the Modern Furniture Workshop Pack. This costs 300 credits, and it gives us over 40 new objects that we can build using the settlement system. I'm pleased to see that all of these new furniture items and decorations are pretty lore-friendly. Some of them are revised models that are already in the game. These beds look very familiar, but we see wonderful new touches like folded sheets and different colors for the headboards. But I think it looks like it fits well in this world. We have a new selection of rugs, which were sorely lacking in the vanilla game. All of the rugs that we had previously had holes in them and were ripped. These are nice and clean, and the patterns look like something that we would find in a store from the 50s or 60s. We get a new selection of tables and coffee tables. You know, some of these do look like something we would find in a furniture store today, but I don't think that's because these are not lore-friendly, but rather because modern furniture tastes are taking inspiration from furniture that was produced during this era of time. We get a couple new container consoles, and a great new selection of chairs and couches. These chairs and couches certainly don't look like something that the Wasteland would have produced. They look new. They have a shape and are made from materials that you would expect to find in the Institute. The couches are made with dyed leather. The wood looks like it hasn't been touched by time. Even the more industrial designs that look like they're made from pipes don't look like they've been made from pipes that have been sitting outside for 200 years. But I suppose we could always explain this away by saying that we found a big cache of pre-war furniture that has remained sealed underground and never got exposed to the harsh effects of the nuclear blast. After all, when we download and install Vault-Tec Workshop, we get all of these new, fresh, and beautiful vault pieces of furniture, which I believe use the same reasoning to explain why they look new. We get around 40 new pieces of furniture and decorations, which I think settlement builders will really enjoy. Now, there are plenty of free mods out there that can give you a greater variety of furniture. There are some rug mods out there that give you a wider selection of brand new rugs, but I think this selection from the Creation Club will only complement the toolset a settlement builder has, making his or her settlements much more compelling. And that is everything that's currently available on the Creation Club. Now that we've given each piece the attention that it deserves, what's the conclusion? Is the Creation Kit canon or not? Well, on the whole, I would say that it's not, and I don't think it was intended to be, and that makes me very sad. I had hoped that the Creation Club was going to be a way to inject the Fallout universe with a bunch of new lore, a bunch of new lore-friendly stuff, and a bunch of new canonical experiences. But it looks like that's not the choice that Bethesda has made. Instead, they've made it look much more like a mod marketplace. I get the impression that Bethesda is going to approve things that they think they can best sell, rather than things that fit best into the world. In short, I don't think lore friendliness is one of the criteria that one of these creations needs to pass to be sold on the Creation Club. And that's a fine choice for Bethesda to make. It's not a choice I would make. I'm a little disappointed, but it makes sense from a business perspective and I understand why they do it. And ultimately, no one's forcing me to buy a modular backpack or modern furniture for my settlements. The part where I think Bethesda really dropped the ball on this is with some of the more expensive creations. I think they did a really good job with the horse armor. It's silly, it's ridiculous, but the experience of that horse armor was the best crafted. It came with a short little quest that made sense in the world, that made me laugh, and the final result was a piece of armor that was funny and it was practical. It's something a character of mine may use in the future. Now, Bethesda could have done a lot better than that. It would be even better if Bethesda were to give us new creations that sent us on far-flung adventures. And maybe that's something they'll provide in the future. But they released a Creation Club that didn't have any new quests, no new locations to explore, no new characters to meet. That has me worried. If they didn't bother to have any of that prepared for their release, I'm less confident that they'll ever provide any of that at all. There should have been a better story for the Hellfire armor. The Hellfire armor should have made more sense in the lore of the world, and it should have had a better quality check so that there was no clipping on the legs. That should have been done. There's no way around it. Bethesda disappointed me with that. Now, having said all of that, I'm still glad the Creation Club exists. I don't want it to go away. There are going to be a lot of players out there who are going to get a lot of use out of the stuff that they can purchase from the Creation Club, particularly PlayStation 4 players. I'm glad that they have more options, even if they're not the best options out there, even if I wish those options were different. If I had to choose between the Hellfire armor that Bethesda gives us with the Creation Club and the Hellfire armor made by the Road to Liberty crew, I would choose the Hellfire armor made by the Road to Liberty crew. But if I had to choose between the Hellfire armor provided by the Creation Club and nothing, I would choose the Hellfire armor provided by the Creation Club. Gosh, I have to be honest, I think things are a little bit overpriced. Now, I don't work at Bethesda, none of us do. These prices may be exactly what they need to be for Bethesda to even break even with the Creation Club. That may be possible, but I doubt that's true. I think Bethesda's making a great profit margin on these things. I wonder if these high prices may be keeping them from selling more units, which would in turn harm their sales, netting them less money in the long run. I don't know for sure, I don't work for Bethesda, but my gut tells me that these are overpriced. That said, it's still less than $5 for a set of Hellfire power armor. I could use that $5 to buy a soy venti double chaka mocha latte thing from Starbucks, which I'll enjoy for a day, or I could buy the power armor, which I'll enjoy for many, many weeks. Anyway, I'll wrap this up by saying that there is a lot of legitimate concern. After examining each creation, I better understand that concern, and I can better relate to that concern. I'm ultimately disappointed with the result that we got. However, I recognize that there are many players who are going to get a lot of use and happiness from this, and so for them, I'm happy. And I hope that we get higher quality stuff in the future. But those are just my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to hear what you have to say. Did anything stand out to you as you saw me go through each of these new creations? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I publish a new Fallout video 6 days a week, ranging a wide array of topics spanning all of the Fallout games. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers get access to a private channel on my Discord server, as well as a bunch of other cool Oxhorn perks. I take Sundays off, so I'm not going to have a video for you on Monday, but I'll be back into the swing of things on Tuesday with more Fallout content for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you Tuesday morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.